Welcome to World Revolution. Today, we're diving into a book summary of Trend Following by Michael and we're focusing on a really powerful chapter called The Game. Let's get into it. So let's just kick things off with a question that basically flips the entire Wall Street narrative on its head. Is this all about being the smartest person in the room? Or is it really about playing the odds? How you answer that one question changes absolutely everything. Okay, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about why you have to see trading as a game. Then, we'll get into something called the rule of acceptance, super important. After that, why you've got to stop playing the blame game. We'll touch on boldness and return, and then tie it all together with how you win the long game. First up, trading is a game. And the fundamental shift here is all about moving your brain from trying to predict the future to just playing the probabilities. You've got to stop acting like a fortune teller and start thinking more like a casino, just playing your statistical edge over and over again. And this slide right here really just lays it all out. The old view, that's all about emotion, right? It's driven by the news, by what some analyst says, and by your ego needing to be right. But the trend follower's view, it's totally different. It's mechanical, it's detached. You don't predict, you just react. You wait for a trend, you hop on, and you let your system do the work. The only thing that really matters is the price. That's it. This quote from Mark Douglas, man, it just nails the psychological shift you have to make. When you truly deep down accept that this is just a game of probability, all that pressure of being right or wrong on any single trade just dissolves. Your ego is no longer in the driver's seat. Your system is. And that leads us perfectly into the next step, which honestly might be the hardest one for most people. Section 2, the rule of acceptance. The big idea? To win, you actually have to learn how to lose. This is the hurdle where almost everybody falls, all because of that deep-seated fear of being wrong. Just let that sink in for a second. The goal is not to be right. It feels completely wrong to say, but it's absolutely crucial. Your ego, my ego, our egos, they all want to win every single time. But trying to be right on every single trade, that's probably the fastest way to lose the entire game. This quote from the book just cuts right to the chase. Those small, frustrating losses when the market jerks around, they're going to happen. The only way to totally avoid them is to just not trade at all. So the lesson is blunt, but it's true. You will have losses. They are a non-negotiable cost of doing business. You just have to accept them. So here's the bottom line. What separates winners from losers isn't whether they have losses, everybody does, it's how they react to them. The losing mindset is terrified of losses, gets emotionally wrecked by them. The winning mindset, it sees losses as just the price of admission. They stay disciplined and they know that success is an average over the long haul, not the result of one trade. All right, so once you accept that losses are part of the deal, the next rule is you have to own them completely. This brings us to Section 3, stop playing the blame game. It's all about taking absolute responsibility. It is so critical to remember that trading is a zero-sum game. For every winner, there has to be a loser. It's a closed system. And when you really get that, you realize that pointing fingers is pointless. Taking full responsibility for your actions is the only way forward. This quote from George Soros is the perfect example of the professional mindset. He's not there to worry about who's on the other side or to justify what he's doing. He's simply a participant, playing the game by its rules. That's it. No excuses. And really, it all boils down to this. Winning players follow their system, and they accept whatever happens. Losing players, they're always looking for something or someone to blame. The market, the news, you name it. But look, you can't control the market. You can, however, 100% control your own actions and your own process. So if you're not blaming the market, what do you do instead? You take smart risks. And that brings us to Section 4, boldness and return. And I love the subtitle here, Fortune favors the calculatedly bold. That word calculatedly is key. The book makes it incredibly clear that consistent success is not about getting lucky. I mean, as the quote says, the person who wins by just haphazard speculation, that's a lottery ticket winner. It's not a strategy. Real, repeatable success comes from skill and discipline. This distinction is just so important. Boldness in this world has absolutely nothing to do with reckless gambling. It's the discipline to actually follow your system, to take the signals it generates, especially when they feel uncomfortable or go against the crowd. In this context, boldness is really an act of pure discipline. And this really captures that whole idea, doesn't it? Meaningful results in any field require taking measured risks that are based on a solid strategy. You just can't expect to get extraordinary returns if you're too afraid to act when your system gives you the green light. So let's put all these pieces together. Let's summarize the mindset you need to actually win this thing over the long term. Our final section, winning the long game, the trend follower's mindset. These 4 steps are pretty much the whole philosophy. Number 1, change the game from trying to predict to just reacting. 2, learn to embrace those small, managed losses. They're just part of the process. 3, own every single one of your actions. No blame, no excuses. And 4, be disciplined enough to be bold when your system says go. It's a complete shift in how you look at the market. And to wrap this all up, here's a final thought for you. This whole mindset, accepting uncertainty, owning your actions, acting with disciplined boldness, it's an incredible framework for the markets. But the real question is, where else in your life could you apply these same ideas to play the game a little bit better? Hey, if you liked this video, please give it a like, share it, and subscribe to us. And be sure to follow up for our next topic. Thanks for watching.
All right, let's continue with our topics on Trendmasters, specifically Trend Following Interviews Part 1. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the minds of 2 absolute legends of trading, Ed Seykota and Martin Luke. We want to figure out what really sets these guys apart by exploring their core philosophies, straight from the source.
So, what's the secret sauce, right? Is it some crazy complex algorithm that nobody else has? Do they have some kind of insider information? Or is it something way deeper, something more fundamental about how they see the markets, and maybe even how they see themselves?
Well, to get to the bottom of this, let's start with one of the OGs of systematic trading, the one and only Ed Seykota. Now, this guy is a true market genius, and trust me, his perspective is going to challenge pretty much everything you think you know.
Okay, so get this. Seykota's whole philosophy just flips the entire idea of a trading system right on its head. He basically says the most critical part isn't the fancy software on your screen, it's not the indicators you're following. Nope. The real system is you, the person sitting in that chair. It's all about your psychology, your emotions, how you react to things. And this quote just nails his point perfectly. Seriously, think about that for a minute. He's not saying you need to avoid feelings like fear or greed. No way. What he is saying is that the feelings you refuse to deal with, that gut-wrenching anxiety of taking a loss or that FOMO kicking in, those feelings are the invisible walls of your trading system. They're what make you break your own rules and miss the big opportunities.
So the bottom line for Seykota is you have to master your own internal world. It's all on you. You've got to take total responsibility. Your P&L, it's a direct reflection of your intentions, even the ones buried deep in your subconscious. And this is where it gets really wild. He brings up this idea that some people, subconsciously, actually like to lose. It's a way they win. So how do you break out of that? The key, he says, is open-ended curiosity. Just stop trying to force things, stop fighting your feelings, and just watch what's actually happening.
Okay, let's bring in our second master and see how his approach stacks up. And we are shifting gears here big time. We're going from Seykota's super internal, psychological world to a framework that's all about the external, the data, the science of it all.
So our second guide is Martin Lukic. He's a co-founder of Aspect Capital, and these guys are an absolute giant in the quant investing world. You could say if Seykota is the trader as a kind of self-aware artist, then Luke is the trader as a hardcore scientist. Lec's story is really the story of trend following itself, how it went from this intuitive art form to a really rigorous, scalable science. I mean, he was right there at the beginning with that legendary group at AHL back in the 80s, building the models that changed the game. And then, after AHL got bought, he co-founded Aspect Capital to take that scientific, diversified approach to the next level.
See, for Luck and his team, trading has nothing to do with gut feelings or what psychological state you're in. It's all about the scientific method. You form a hypothesis, you test it against tons of data, and you build a process that's rock solid. It's all built on a deep respect for data and, maybe more importantly, a healthy skepticism of human intuition. That's science, right? And this is perfect. This quote from the physicist Richard Feynman, it just perfectly sums up Luck's entire philosophy. You must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. It's all about intellectual honesty, right? The point of a scientific system isn't just about finding winners. It's about building a process that stops you from fooling yourself, which, let's be honest, we're all really good at.
So what does this look like in practice? Well, it means a relentless focus on process. For Luke, it's all about a super rigorous statistical approach. No crossing your fingers and hoping something works. It means you're constantly on the hunt for new markets to diversify into because he knows that markets get more and more similar over time. The whole thing is designed to be a living, breathing, scientific process, always evolving, always adapting based on hard evidence, not feelings.
Okay, so we've got these two totally different paths, right? Sekoda's path starts inside your head with psychology. Luck's path starts with the data, with math and the scientific method. So the big question is, do these two roads, which look completely opposite, actually end up in the same place?
And what's so cool is that the answer is a huge yes. Even though they start in completely different places, both of these masters end up at the same core truths. The end goal, whether you get there through psychology or through science, is to build a framework that forces you to be disciplined. It all comes down to this. Follow your rules. Don't predict, just react. Manage your risk like your life depends on it. Make decisions based on price, not your opinion. And be humble enough to know you're going to be wrong a lot and have a plan for it.
And really, that brings us right back to the main lesson here. It doesn't matter if you're building a system on a supercomputer like Luck or building it in your own mind like Sekoda. The ultimate challenge is exactly the same. You've got to design a system that an actual human being, a flawed, emotional, imperfect human being, can actually follow. So I'll just leave you with this final question. Is your system designed for a perfect robot, or is it designed for the very human person running it? All right, that's a wrap on this one. Thank you for watching, and please follow up on our next topic.
Okay, so today we're really getting inside the heads of a new kind of trader. These are the folks who've thrown out emotion and guesswork, and instead, they're all about the cold, hard logic of science and probability. Financier Ewan Kirk really hits the nail on the head here. This quote gets right to a core human desire, right? The one that drives so many investment mistakes. We're all looking for that perfect strategy, the one that never loses. But Kirk points out that this hunt for the impossible, well, it's what opens the door for financial disaster. I mean, that sounds completely backward, doesn't it? But stick with me here, because this counterintuitive idea is the absolute key to unlocking the modern trend-following mindset. So let's explore the philosophy of guys like physicists Jean-Philippe Bouchau and Ewan Kirk. See, for them, the market isn't some grand story or a drama playing out. No, they see it for what it is, a massive statistical puzzle, just sitting there waiting to be solved. And you've gotta understand, this is a huge departure from the old Wall Street way of doing things. We're talking about moving away from gut feelings, from hot tips, and taking a giant leap towards objective, testable proof. Okay, so what's really fascinating here is how they look at all the traditional, more subjective ways of analyzing markets. For them, it's not just about a different method, it's a completely different worldview. You can see the shift right here. It's moving away from trying to be a fortune teller, predicting the future, and instead focusing on building a rock-solid process that can handle whatever the market throws at it. And Ewan Kirk, well, he doesn't pull any punches. He basically calls classic technical analysis, the stuff you read in all those old trading books, a relic from the dark ages, something from a less sophisticated, pre-scientific time. He has this brilliant analogy for it. He compares reading charts to seeing shapes in the clouds. And that just perfectly captures the problem, right? It plays right into our own psychological biases. I mean, think about it. Look at that cloud, it looks like a dog. That cuts right to the heart of their whole argument. Our brains are literally wired to be pattern-matching machines. We're built to find meaning and see shapes, even when we're just looking at random noise. And this is the crucial point. It's a complete flip of the typical investor's mindset. Instead of looking for a reason to believe a pattern is real, the scientific trader starts from the opposite direction. They assume it's all just random noise until they can prove, with hard evidence, that it's not. This way of thinking leads to what is probably the toughest concept for most people to swallow. You don't just have to accept loss. You have to expect it as a mathematical certainty, even when you have a winning strategy. So let's walk through a little thought experiment. Ewan Kirk uses it to explain a critical statistical reality, why even a system that's guaranteed to make money over the long haul will still have brutal, painful losing streaks that will test you to your core. Okay, so he says, imagine a simple spreadsheet. You've built a model that's guaranteed to average a 20% annual return. Now, every single time you hit the recalculate button, like pressing F9, the spreadsheet generates a brand new, totally random history of its performance. Each history is completely different, but they all follow the same winning rules. So what happens when you keep hitting F9? What do these random histories look like? Well, if you're expecting a nice, smooth line going up and to the right, you're in for a shock. The results can be, well, pretty unsettling. Because Kirk points out, you don't have to hit that F9 key many times before you generate a history where your guaranteed winning strategy has a massive 40% drawdown. And it's not because the strategy is broken. It's just pure, simple statistical chance. And this is really the mic drop moment. It proves that going through deep, painful drawdowns isn't a sign that you failed. No, it's an absolutely essential, non-negotiable part of achieving long-term success. So if the edge isn't having some secret formula that never loses money, then what is it? Well, the edge, they argue, is all about discipline. It's having the mental strength to run your system when everyone else is getting thrown around by their emotions. This really captures that fundamental conflict, doesn't it? On one side, you have the emotional investor who needs to be right, who fears any loss. And on the other, you have the scientific trader who expects losses and just focuses on the long-term probabilities. So the true advantage isn't being a better fortune teller. It's psychological fortitude. It's having the guts to stick to your plan, to calmly execute your system, even when it feels completely and utterly wrong. All right, let's bring this all together. What's the big takeaway from all of this? What does this probabilistic view of the world really mean for you and me? It really boils down to this one simple idea that sums up their entire philosophy. Stop trying to predict the future. It's impossible. Instead, focus on building a system that can survive the future. Build something that can handle the storms because, trust me, the storms are definitely coming. And that's the real challenge they leave us with, isn't it? It's a question we all have to ask ourselves. We have to look in the mirror and be honest about how we approach risk and uncertainty. Is your process built to survive the messy, unpredictable nature of reality? Well, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next topic. All right, let's continue our series on Trendmasters and jump right into part 3 of our interviews. Today, we're really getting inside the heads of 3 financial masters to figure out what truly makes them tick, their strategies, how they look at risk, and the mindset behind it all. So what's really going on here? Is there some kind of secret formula they're all hiding? Are they just geniuses? Or is it all just dumb luck? Well, we're going to get to the bottom of it by looking at the wisdom of a practitioner, a professor, and a strategist. Okay, first up, we have Alex Grayserman, and his journey is fascinating because it doesn't start in some fancy boardroom. Nope, it starts as an apprentice to an absolute legend. And this quote really gets to the heart of it. Grayserman learned firsthand that the most profound wisdom is often hiding in plain sight, disguised as super simple advice. His story really shows us how. Now, get this, he wasn't some kind of trading prodigy. Not at all. He was a young immigrant who literally started at the bottom. He took a job with the legendary Larry Hite without knowing a single thing about trend following. He just needed to pay the bills. So over the years, these lessons got baked into his DNA. And the big takeaway here? It was never about finding some magic holy grail formula. It was all about discipline and having a deep, healthy respect for just how unpredictable the market can be. All right, so that's the practitioner's view. Now let's switch gears and bring in the professor. Campbell Harvey comes at this with the sharp eye of an academic, and he's here to tear down the myths that trap so many investors. Harvey's whole mission really is to help us untangle 2 things that almost everyone confuses: actual, repeatable skill and just plain old dumb luck. It's a distinction most people completely fail to make. And he's got this killer analogy to explain it. Imagine you roll a whole bunch of dice, and you pick out all the ones that came up 6s. Now, if you roll those same dice again, are they all going to be 6s? Of course not. They're going to look just like average dice. And that's his point. Those top-performing funds, they might just be the lucky 6s from one roll, destined to look a lot more average next time around. You know, Wall Street is absolutely obsessed with something called the Sharpe ratio. They love it because it seems to perfectly balance risk and reward. But Harvey comes along and says, hang on a second, there's a massive blind spot here that you're all missing. And he poses this one crucial question that really cuts to the core of what risk actually is in the real world. And the answer is devastatingly simple. The Sharpe ratio completely ignores the possibility of a catastrophic downside. See, volatility isn't the whole story of risk. A strategy can look fantastic on paper, right up until the moment a single bad event completely wipes out every single gain. This all builds up to what might be Harvey's most important idea, the huge difference between risk and uncertainty, and it's something most people get wrong. See, risk is when you know the odds. Think of a casino. But uncertainty? That's when you don't even know what game you're playing. Big difference. Okay, so we've heard from the practitioner and the professor. Our final master, Lasse Peterson, kind of brings it all together. He gives us this really powerful framework that synthesizes all these ideas into a clear, strategic model. And he does this by contrasting two absolute legends, George Soros and Warren Buffett, to show us that there are two fundamentally different ways to play the game. So you've basically got two paths. Are you betting on chaos and change? Or are you betting on things staying calm and predictable? What Peterson gives us here is a mental model that helps you understand pretty much any strategy out there. So let's step back for a second. We've got the practitioner, the professor, and the strategist. And when you look at all three, you start to see this really clear, shared mindset emerging. There's a common thread that ties them all together. Because here's the thing, the real secret isn't some tactic or formula. It's a whole way of thinking. It's about respecting risk, not trying to get rid of it. It's about constantly questioning your assumptions, knowing that human emotions are always part of the equation, and building strategies that can survive in a world you just can't predict. That's the key. And you know, this kind of wisdom, it isn't just for trading. It's really for any big decision we have to make when the pressure's on. A pretty powerful thought to end on. Thank you for watching, and be sure to join us for our next explainer, Episode 4.